All right, enough's enough. It is time for my yearly NHL franchise rebuild series, and we're going to start right now. Now, last year, we rebuilt the Buffalo Sabres. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have saved them for this year because they got so much worse. But nonetheless, we are going to dive in deep. We're going to go over all of the best ways to operate franchise mode and build the best dynasty that we possibly can. And we're going to do it with the Ottawa Senators. That's right, these Sens are going to return to glory from the Danny Heatley and Alexei Yashin, Daniel Alfredsson days, only this time, we're going to get it done right, and we're going to acquire those cups. Not just one, but an abundance of them. So throughout this series, guys, you are going to see all of the best franchise mode tips that you possibly can to build and make the best, most in-depth team in NHL 21's franchise mode. Now, the one thing I do need to state, we need to go over the rules. There's a couple things that I'm going to make sure that I do in this franchise mode. Number one, custom rosters. Obviously, one of the biggest things lacking in NHL is custom rosters and roster sharing. So, while I didn't go through and edit and do everything like I did in the Buffalo Sabres series last year, I did add some of the key guys that are missing, specifically for the Ottawa Senators. I added in Jake Sanderson because obviously he's not in the game, and that's a big part of their rebuild. I also added in about 4 or 5 of the top prospects in this upcoming draft to make it a little bit more realistic. Also, no injuries. I find that they become really random. Also, no player morale and no fog of war. I'm not a fan of just randomness. I want to make sure that when we put in the effort and the time correctly, we get the right rewards. All right, guys, so that being said, let's start with episode 1 of the Ottawa Senators rebuild. All right, guys, here we are, year 1 of the Ottawa Senators rebuild. Something I also want to mention, we are going to make sure that this is a complete organizational rebuild. We are going to focus on the AHL as well. We build them from the ground up to make sure that we've got a great farm system. We're going to make sure we pay our coaches and our scouts. We're going to make sure that Eugene Melnyk does not ruin this franchise by being able to sign the free agents that we need to sign and keep the players that we grow in our system, okay? So that is going to be first and foremost is we've got to decide who we're going to keep and who we are going to let go, and that's really going to come down to one of the most important things in this mode, and that's the coaching staff. So year 1, it is going to be randomly generated, and we'll take a look at our coaching staff. We've got a B overall. I can already tell you we are not going to have him for more than a season. I need to mention the goals specifically, in my opinion, for this season. It is going to be, honestly, get rid of any bad contract that we have that is not going to, help our future, acquire as many draft picks as possible, scout the draft as well as we possibly can, and make sure that we keep rebuilding through the draft as best as possible and see if we can find any gems in free agency that'll help our AHL team that we might be able to trade for future assets. But when it comes to the coaching staff, I'm not sure that we got a very good one. As we take a look at the overall roster right from the beginning, we've got Brady Tkachuk at 84 overall. He fits the first line. Stützle fits the second line, and even then, it really doesn't fit all that well. So, like I said, this original coach that we got is not going to fit in our future. So what we got to do next is go through the roster and see who we're going to just get rid of, okay? If they're over 26, they're really not going to grow, and if they don't fit where we need them to fit, we're probably going to move on, especially the cap hit. Number 1, who I'm probably looking at here, is Derek Stepan. He has got to go. 30 overall, makes $6.5 million. He has just got to get off of the paycheck here. On defense, we've got Chabot, obviously our cornerstone defenseman. Again, he doesn't fit this coach, so this coach has got to go. We've also got Eric Brandstrom and Bernard Docker that we're going to grow and hopefully have them turn into elite players. And then in net, we've got to move on from Murray, and I think that finding a good goaltender in the system is probably going to be of the utmost importance as well. So, first things first, we need to go through and make sure the rest of the coaching staff, the year 1, this guy really doesn't matter. Keaton Mahalik, like I said, the only thing I'm really paying attention to is the teaching staff. We want to make sure that our young players, specifically Stützle and Chabot, as well as Tkachuk, they all grow. So A- teaching is fine. Moving on down the line here, we've got Zach Wesley. He's got an A+ on the power play, which is nice. A- on Karner Riesner. And then our goalie coach has got a B for teaching. We want to see if we can hire one that's a little bit better. One of the more important hacks that we are going to look for as well, guys, is to make sure that our AHL head coach matches the system almost to the T to our NHL head coach. And what that is going to allow us to do is that when we acquire players through the draft, or even if we sign two-way guys, we'll know how they're going to work in the NHL. So this is a very, very important tip if you guys are trying to build the best possible team, and especially when you're drafting, because they're going to play on your AHL team more often than not, and you're going to know exactly how they're going to fit, and that's just really going to help us down the line. So like I said, the first year, we really can't do much with our coaching staff, because when you go to see who's on the market in terms of who we can hire, there isn't really any studs that we can go out and get. We've got Ahmad Pekka, and he fits a little bit. He fits Shabbat, he fits Kachuk, and not bad on Stützle. So those are the really important ones, but his stats really aren't anything crazy. When you get into the first year of free agency, right at free agency, one of the most important things is to look the coaches on the market, because you'll find A-plus coaches all over the place, and we just got to find the right ones that will fit. So the one thing I do want to make sure is if we go and look for goaltenders, and we want to see if we can improve upon the one that we've got there. So when you go and take a look at the goalie, the one that specializes in goalie, you'll see their overall is really low. All that's important is the teaching of it. So we'll see if we can find any that are maybe in the C range. If not, then we'll take a C- right there, and that's probably going to be the best one. They usually are not very good, but we want to see if we can't find someone. Yeah, it'll be that C- coach, and we'll see what his teaching is, because that is the most important stat for the goalies. It's C, so we'll just keep going through. A+ right there. Landon Piton, he is going to go and be our NHL goalie coach, so we'll hire him. Again, we'll overpay. We'll make sure that he does sign, as obviously you've got to pay in Ottawa, so we'll go ahead and fire our current goalie coach. He's got to go, and we'll see you there as Flynn. Have a good one. He's now out of there. So that's our first move for our franchise. Now on to the scouts. So early on in our franchise mode rebuild, I don't really care about the pro level scouts. I don't care about, finding out who fits and who doesn't in terms of, other players in the NHL. All I want to focus on is the draft, and I've learned a lot of tips here that is really going to help you find as many top-end players and find the gems later on in the draft as well that you possibly can. So I'm going to show you that now. First things first, what I want to do is just go through and see if there's any NHL. So I can fire any of these NHL and AHL coaches. In all honesty, I don't really think they're worth it at all. So then after that, you want to hire more coaches for the OHL, WHL, and Q. Those are where most of your players are going to come from. So if we take a look here, we'll go and sort by the OHL first, just because I'm a big fan of the OHL. And yeah, again, I'll hire some more OHL coaches. So I'm going to go off screen, and I'm going to do that real quick and get our scouting staff all set up. Now, one thing I want to mention when you are going through and hiring the scouts for your minor league scouting staff, what you want to do is, so I'm going to need 3 QMJHL staff members, in my opinion, to be able to scout the Q effectively. So I need to hire 2 more. What you want to do is see it now. There's C overall. You want to find the best overall that you can. Okay, but then click in, and you'll see what the region familiarity. You want to make sure that that's at least an A+. It really doesn't matter in the other regions that they have, because they're not going to be scouting there. So if this guy specifically has an A+, so we'll offer him a contract. So just make sure when you're going through and hiring, don't just go by the overall. You want to sort by overall first, and then find the one that has the A+ for that region specifically. All right, so I have gone through and hired the scouting staff that I want. Now, the amount of, scouts that you have in a region really depends on how many players are coming from that specific region. And this is the best way to scout players effectively in this game. Like I said, in a full rebuild, you don't want to have any pro scouts. They really aren't going to benefit you, because you're not making a lot of trades with other NHL teams, and especially because we're going to be firing the coaching staff after this year regardless, when we can get to free agency and actually have some options when it comes to head coach. So what do you do in that sense in terms of now, when you've hired your coaching staff? So if you go through, let's start with the Dufresne here. You want to go and scout players specifically. Okay, now when you go through, you'll see how many players that they have typically inside all the way to like 500. So you go down. This is going to determine how many scouts you need for each region. Now, in my opinion, a basic way to do this is I basically have 2 to 3 for each of the CHL leagues. So the WHL, the OHL, I have 4 here, 3 from the Q. Okay, this is where a majority of your top end prospects are going to come from. After that, I have 1 for each of the US regions, and then Extra Liga, Ice, SHL, you want to have 2 as it's a really, really dense one for, high-end prospects. And again, you go look, you'll see how many inside the top 100 that you have. It's going to change a little bit year to year, especially in the European ones. But again, you can change the regions of these specific scouts as well. So I have 1 in Liga and then 2 in Russia. And when you look at the region efficiency, it's all in the high, A- to A+, which is what you're looking for. So now what do we do in terms of actually scouting? You really want to cycle 3 separate scouting reports throughout the year. So when you launch into NHL 21's franchise mode and you get in that middle of September, right before the preseason, you want to go until about January 1st. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So when you click on him and you'll go to scout specific players, this is what you want to do. If you go and highlight each of these players, okay, we'll just go through and you'll see you'll see down in the bottom right, the estimated date that it will take to actually scout these players, okay? Now, what you want to actually do though is choose the potential and comparison, because that is really the most important that you're going to get in terms of what you're looking for. Potential and comparison means that you are going to find out, are they a medium elite? Are they a low elite? Are they a 7th defenseman, but they're rated really high? Potential and comparison is all you really want to pay attention to when you're doing your initial scouting report. So as you see, the estimated date will go a little bit higher, will go further out depending on how many you choose, okay? So right here, December 31st, all right? So we get down to the 96th overall ranked player in terms of central scouting. Now, the next thing you need to understand, we now know who, how down in the list to get it to December 31st or January 1st. That's where you want to aim. You want to go ahead and remove all of these now, okay? Because the reason is they will scout in order that you place them in reverse. So when you do roulette first, okay, we'll do scouting comparison, you'll see that he moves down the list. And that's super important because you want to make sure that the higher end prospects are the ones that you're scouting first, because those are the ones you want to spend all of your time on. So now I've got it set up correctly. Lambos, who is considered, or Carson Lambos, who is the highest rated from Central Scouting right off the bat, is who we want to take a look at first. And he is at the top of the list on the right-hand side. Super important to remember. Now you basically want to go through and do this with every single scout. So same thing applies, okay? In the WHL, okay? I've already done it with once. So we go to scout specific players, all right? You want to remove all the ones that they have here. And in my opinion, to make sure that you get the top 100 is where I really want to focus on. You go and we do the same thing again with the other WHL coaches. This is going to give you the best complete 4 out of 4 in terms of how accurate the potential and comparison is if you have all of your scouts do this. The other attributes that you can scout, like character assessment, skill assessment, strengths and weaknesses, and playing style, really don't matter until later on in the build when you have your coach that you want to use for basically the entire thing and who you want to build your team around, because you want to make sure that they fit that system. And we'll talk a little bit about that later in the build here. There we go. So January 1st, and that's all set. And again, yep, we've got potential and comparison for all of these, and that'll it. Make sure you confirm the assignment by hitting start. Well, it depends on what system you're on, but you want to make sure you hit start. Just don't back out because that will erase it. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead again and do that with every single region and have all of that set up so we don't have to worry about it until January 1st. All right, so I'm all finished now. It takes quite some time to go through, but you will see why we do it come the draft. So you see at the top right there, it'll say estimated date, January 1st, December 30th, 31st. You want to get this as close to January 1st as possible. And then we're going to redo this in January till, I believe, April 1st. And then we do it one more time, and it'll end up right before the draft. And it'll give you the most in-depth analysis of the players that you can draft in each draft class, which is obviously going to be huge because we are going to have to keep drafting top-end prospects to rebuild these Senators. All right, so now we've got to go and decide who we want on this team for our first season. Now, the goal, not make the playoffs. I would actually love it if we did brutal and, got a much better draft pick, as we've got some good prospects in the draft that we can grab. But nonetheless, we've got to decide who we are going to play and then make sure that they're in decent position. So number one is Tim Stützle. He needs to be the main focus of this year. He has to play a lot of minutes to try and make sure that he upgrades as fast as possible. And Brady Tkachuk is obviously extremely important as well. So is Josh Norris, who's extremely young. And again, we'll see where they fit. Josh Norris actually fits this coach quite well. And we'll see if we can play him, because Brady Tkachuk really, he fits more on the first line. So we're going to go through and see if I can't set this up. And again, we'll see where we're at once I've done that. All right, so I've gone through and set up the team as best as I possibly can, given the current coach that we were randomly generated and all of the players that we've got on the roster. So first line will be Brady Tkachuk, Stützle, and Dadonov, which honestly isn't all that bad. Colin White, Josh Norris, and Ryan DeZingle on the second line. Nick Paul moving up to left wing on the third line with Chris Tierney and Batherson. And then Connor Brown, Amadio, and Formanton rounding out the fourth line. Now, the one thing I want to pay attention to is that everyone is under the age of 27. Amadio is I believe Tierney is the oldest at 26. And then DeZingle's up there at 28 as well. Other than that, everyone is under the age of 26, so they can still improve. On defense, we've got Shabbat and Brandstrom, Bernard Docker, and Victor Mete, and then Zaitsev and Zub. We're probably going to try and find another defenseman here, but we need bodies to play in the first year no matter what anyway, so it really doesn't matter all that much if we use Mete and Zaitsev. Honestly, Mete might improve, so it's honestly not all that bad. And then in net, we've got Murray and Forsberg. In all honesty, when I went through the AHL, we've actually got a pretty good tandem in Joey Decord and Gustafsson, so I might move Decord up to play backup because his potential is medium backup, so that's not a bad spot for him to be. And then Philip Gustafsson, who is a medium starter potential and a little bit younger at 22, could start in the AHL. Obviously, Forsberg is kind of capped at 79 where he's a fringe starter, so that might be the smarter play. Throughout the year, we've got to try and get rid of Matt Murray. His contract is a mess, and he's not a part of the future. Now we go down to the AHL. Like I said, this is a complete rebuild. We need to focus on the AHL to make sure that we're grooming our prospects and the organization from the ground up. So the first line is Vitaly Abramov with Shane Pinto, who is probably the most important prospect in the AHL for us. And then Igor Sokolov, the second-round pick from this year. After him, we've got Artem Anisimov, who will try and replace their free agency to find someone else to play. He just honestly doesn't fit. Matthew Pekka and Bodden with Logan Brown, Logan Shaw, and Kapaka on the third with Clark Bishop, Lebate, and Davidson. Again, looking at the ages other than Anisimov and Pekka, everyone is relatively young. On the back end, it's kind of a mess, but we do have a +5 from Brandon Fortunato, who was undrafted, with Jack Daughtry, who is 24 but is 71 overall, a second-round pick from the Nashville Predators. Moving down the line, we've got Cody Goluboff, who obviously we're going to move on from. And then Lassie Thompson, who was the first rounder in 2019. We're going to have him play this year and see if he can improve a little bit. We might move him up as well, give him all the minutes he can possibly handle, because again, this year, not really important. Ollie Alsing, again, undrafted, does fit a little bit on that third line, who is only 24. And then Josh Brown is kind of the defensive stalwart on this unit at 6'5", 26 years old, and a 77 overall. So that is what we're at right now. We've got to remove some of the contracts, specifically when you look at the who we've got scratched right now, as we've got specifically Stepan. He doesn't fit, and he's too much money, and Austin Watson. We'll try and move both of those, and we'll see if there's anyone in free agency that we can pick up. And again, we're looking for AHLers as well. So currently in the free agency for the NHL, there isn't really anyone that I want to pick up. I'm looking for younger players that have some potential to still grow. There really isn't any of that, so that's fine. My roster for the NHL is kind of set. I'm okay with that. We might make some trades to acquire some players, but really I'm okay. In terms of the AHL, I'm going to go to two-way and see if I can find any guys that are a little bit younger that might actually fit. I mean, Remi Elie has a low top 9 forward. He's a former second-round pick at 25. He really can't grow all that much anymore, but he might improve. Again, Artem Anisimov has got to be moved as well because he just doesn't fit. So again, I'm gonna comb through here and see if there's any higher potentials. Honestly, the best thing to do is you go to sort by potential. So top 6 medium forward for Ikonen. He is 21, but only 60 overall. That's probably too low to ever grow into anything. But Kuffner here, It is a medium top 6 forward at 74 overall and 24 years of age. There's a potential chance he could go up a couple. Not a huge one, but we'll see, and that's really what we're looking for here. So I'm going to go ahead and see what we can do. We also need to fix our trade block because that is going to be important when we're looking to make acquisitions here, especially in the first episode. So we'll go down here and we'll make sure that we add specifically Anisimov and step onto it because, again, we don't want either of those guys. They're really just not going to help us out. Matthew Pekka could be added, I guess, as well. But, I mean, having some veterans in the AHL is going to be something that I focus on as well, guys. I'm not just going to make sure that it's all rookies all the time. Obviously, that's super important. But I want the AHL team to succeed. As, again, the more playoff games and whatnot they can actually get into, the more potential that they have to grow a little bit. So it is super important there. And as we go down, we might move on from Dadonov as well, who's on a 3-year deal, 84 overall. I mean, maybe not because we want to give Stützle some help at least that first year so that he can grow as high as he possibly can. And we do have some good prospects in Grieg that will eventually play. So really outside of that, I'm not seeing any guys that I really want to add to the trade block outside of Murray. Where are you? Murray, but I don't feel like anyone is gonna go for him. In terms of what we want, honestly, all I'm going to do is just set it for picks because I'm not really looking for a ton. There is going to be some specific guys that we go after in terms of prospects throughout this series because, again, there's some favorites of mine in the AHL that I'm obviously going to target. I'm a really big Ice Dogs fan, so specifically Akil Thomas will probably try and get. But nonetheless, that'll be for a later episode. So that is really it, guys. We are pretty set up here. There isn't really anyone else to go out and grab, so I think we're just about done, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Also, I want you guys to give me your thoughts on who we should make the captain and give the letters to. I'm thinking that we just let, maybe we let Stützle lead from his rookie season, or maybe give it to Brady Tkachuk. I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think down below of this series. And tune in to the next one. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.